Welcome to Not Ashamed. I'm your host, Ashley Nordman, and today I'm here with special guest, Clayton Echard, who is the lead from season 26 of The Bachelor. He was also an ex-NFL player and a current realtor.
Yes, that's correct. Look at that.
Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, well, I would say thank you for being here because you're in my stomping ground.
Yeah,
right now.
that's true.
Super convenient for you guys to come out here, and we are rolling in my humble abode, my apartment, which is nice.
Out here in beautiful Scottsdale, which I've never been to Scottsdale, and
but you're gonna have a blast.
I've been here for 4 whole hours, and I love it already. It's beautiful.
And you will. Well, it depends what you guys get into later as far as festivities.
Nightlife.
Yeah, you might love it at night, and then wake up in the morning and your head might hurt from having too much fun.
That's true.
Unless you keep it more, classy. But you got a little bit of everything here.
I know. I'm a little. It depends on how I'm feeling.
Yeah, you got class and classless, and we all just morph it into one here. Yeah.
I love that.
You'll have fun.
All right, Clayton. So I know you're from Missouri.
Yes.
Which is where I'm from too.
Yep. Yeah.
Shout out to St. Louis.
Shout out to St. Louis. There's still a lot of Midwesterners out here. I was telling you off camera before we started that there's a pizza place. I'm gonna plug it right now.
Yeah, plug it.
Fraser's Smokehouse.
Fraser's Smokehouse.
Every Friday I get it. The guy's from St. Louis. He said he ships the cheese, the Provel cheese, out from St. Louis to here, and I get it every Friday because it reminds me of Emo's. I think it might be a little bit better than Emo's.
I don't think people that aren't from St. Louis know what Emo's even is.
Emo's pizza is a special type of pizza in Missouri. I think it's the only place you can find it. Well, I say that, and you can find it here, and maybe there's another shop elsewhere in the country that has it. But it's provolone and cheddar?
I wouldn't know.
I don't know the second one. It's provolone and then I think Swiss maybe mixed together to make Provel. That's how you make the Provel cheese. And so I plug it any chance I get. I love pizza. It's my favorite food. And I eat it every Friday, religiously. I get pizza and wings there every single Friday.
Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here first.
Yeah.
Go to Fraser's.
If you want a slice of St. Louis, yeah.
Is it big, or is it like, what kind of pizza are you talking?
It's
is it thin?
Do you not know Emo's?
No, I know Emo's. Okay. It's like thin crust, right? So it's like the same thing.
Fraser's is like the exact same thing.
Okay, just a different name.
He created it to like make it so it's just like Emo's. Okay. It tastes exactly like
I'm just
Emo's.
envisioning this giant piece of pizza and you just like devouring it because you're literally a 6'5" like giant human.
Oh, I smoke it. That
versus like the little squares.
Yeah, like a pound. I get like the 16-inch pizza with a pound of wings.
And you eat it all by yourself?
Bury it. That's why I've went up 10 pounds in the last 3 months.
Bury it. Just bury it.
Yeah, but that's like
you see it as a challenge. You're like, I'm going to eat all of this.
Well, that's what it used to be. We had to, like, growing up in a household of 2 other brothers, it was who could eat the fastest. Basically, my parents made food, and they're like, once the food's gone, the food's gone. Yeah. So we used to just, like, I would sit this close and shovel my food.
Oh, I can't even imagine.
I had to break that habit when I was in medical sales because they call it a trough. It was like a 2,000 calorie like, protein bowl that I'd make every day. But when I was in the OR, I didn't even realize I did it. They brought it to my attention. They're like, hey, like tap me on the shoulder, like, no one's going to steal your food. I'm like, what do you mean? And I had my arm around the bowl, like sitting like this close to it, scarfing down my food.
Like a dog, like trying
to... That's the way I was hardwired. Like just scarfing down food because I had to eat faster than my brothers did. And I'm not like my parents made an abundance of food, but we ate an abundance of food. Yeah. Like my brother played college ball. I did. My youngest brother probably could have if he wanted to. We were all just big boys. Yeah, so like that was that hardwiring. So yeah, I mean, so 16-inch pizza these days still. I'm like I got to be careful because now my metabolism's dropping. And my appetite's not, so.
Yeah, you're still scarfing down food, but you're like, wait, we're in our 30s now, so.
Yeah, I know, I'm like 31, I'm like, oh gosh.
Oh my gosh.
Wiser, but to some degree. Yeah, also still a risk taker at points when I shouldn't be, but whatever. Right. Yeah. Okay, so you're 6'5", right? 6'4" and 3/8". Okay. But we're men, we round up.
Almost 6'5". Yeah, are your brothers that tall too?
My middle brother's 6'2" and a half. He rounds up as well. And then my youngest brother is like, I think he's 6 foot now. Okay, so you're all enormous humans. Yeah. I mean, like we're big. And my dad was big, and my mom was tall, and so we were overall like a pretty well-statured family. So yeah, I mean, but now I'm like, what am I big for? I used to be big for football. Now I just take up space to take up space. But it was somewhat of my identity, I guess. I don't know. There's still a part of me that like identifies with just being a big dude.
For sure.
But like realizing I had to develop other parts of who I am. If I want to attract someone, it's not just going to work to have big muscles.
You can't just be big.
That used to work, in college until women started to wise up and be like, just because he has big muscles doesn't mean he's the type of guy that I want to be with. So I've been working on the emotional intelligence.
Yeah, well, I'm excited to dive into all this today.
We will dive deep into that, yeah.
You have a lot you want to say.
I always have a lot to say, yeah. And so
from what I know about you, it sounds like there's a lot of bullshit out there about you that...
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of bullshit, and there's some facts mixed within, and sometimes I correct it, and sometimes I don't have the time to. So,
yeah, it's not even worth it sometimes.
So we can try to dispel as much as whatever you've heard.
Okay.
I'm an open book. I don't have anything to hide. I'm like, I am what I am, and sometimes my mom, calls me, and she's like, Clayton, you say too much on these podcasts. She's like...
She says that to you?
Oh, she's like, you're just too honest. You don't need to be sometimes. And sometimes I, go back, I'm like, yeah, I probably shouldn't have said that.
I'm the same way, though. It's so hard for me to, I'm just unfiltered. I'm just going to tell you how it is because it's so much easier to tell the truth than to fabricate or hold back.
I mean, there's certain things where people are like, I heard you were this way. I'm like, yeah, I am, or whatever. And they're like, wow. I'm like, what? That's my history. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're expecting me to lie to you, I can't do it. That's what got me in trouble on the show, on The Bachelor. I was way too honest for my own good. And
you think that's what got you in trouble?
I mean, one of things, but yeah.
Did you just speak what your mind, on your mind, what was on your mind, and then you would end up hurting people's feelings, kind of thing? You mean? Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah.
I mean, and we can dive into however deep you want to get on it, but I ultimately was just speaking out loud.
Yeah.
And I think some people took it as this guy is just such an asshole, and he's just this former athlete that thinks he can just treat women however he wants, and look at him. He's not showing any emotion. He doesn't care that he's hurting these women. The reality is I didn't have the emotional intelligence to really be able to explain what I was feeling. So I was just straight up saying out loud the way I felt internally. And then the lack of emotion probably was just because I had suppressed my emotion my entire life, growing up in in an area of the country that, toxic masculinity, also playing football, was very rampant.
Right.
And so people are like, oh, this guy has no emotion. I was like, no, I didn't know how to express myself. Mm-hmm. So I came across as this cold-hearted man. When the reality was I was hurting and crying behind closed doors. I just couldn't cry in front of people. I wouldn't cry when the cameras were on. A couple times they caught me because I was that overwhelmed.
Yeah.
But most of my crying I did was off camera because that's the way that, I grew up in an environment where it was men don't cry. Real men, if you feel pain, just go hit someone. And that's what I did with football. I just hit people harder.
Yeah.
So, it was interesting because a lot of these things that were put online about how I'm, reckless, careless. I mean, I probably was, but I didn't mean to be.
People also just misunderstood you, it sounds like,
Yeah, but I mean,
to some extent.
I understand because I didn't know who I was. Mm-hmm. So I was putting this version of me out there that was a facade. I created this image of what I thought was impressive to people. And so it was, get as big as I could get, just be as muscular as I could be, play at the highest level of football, go into medical sales and be an orthopedic medical device sales representative in the joint reconstructive and trauma divisions, like a mouthful. I would tell people the mouthful, because everything I did, I was trying to impress people.
Right.
Because I didn't, believe in myself. So I thought, well, I want everyone to think that I'm this incredible human being, because I growing up, I was in a competitive household. I grew up in a household of two boys, and it was basically who can do the most.
Yeah, you had to compete for love.
Yeah, well, and just compete for attention and
attention. Yeah.
And so I just kept doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that I picked up in my life, up until recently, I just kept trying to compete for attention and love of people that don't even know me. So that was a realization one day that I had where I'm like, I can't keep doing this. I'm driving myself into a rut, and I've created this image of someone that I don't even love. This isn't who I actually want to be.
Right.
This is just who I thought most people would accept me for.
So when did you first get vulnerable? When did you first start opening up?
Probably post-show. When I came off TV, I just was flatlined by negativity. I mean, everyone was just coming at me from all different angles. It felt like the entire world was attacking me. The reality was, there's, 7 million people watch the show or whatever, which is a lot.
It's a lot.
It's a lot of people. It feels like the entire world. Mm-hmm. But when the population of the United States is 330 million or whatever it's at, it's still a small percentage. Mm-hmm. But I was getting thousands of messages a day telling me kill myself, telling me I'm not worthy of love, telling me I'm fat, ugly, stupid, anything you can think of. Somebody thought it, and it derailed me. I went to a really dark place towards the finale of the show where I had these thoughts, suicidal ideation. I wasn't going to go through with it because I had those thoughts earlier in my life as well, but I knew that I could get out the other side of it, but I was just in a really, really bad spot. And I thought the only thing that I can do to make this better is just be vulnerable and open up, because I cannot suppress these feelings, because they will bubble up and then it will be an emotional outburst. So I just started vocalizing everything.
Well, yeah, what you had been doing up until then obviously wasn't working. So It's like the only other option now is just do the hard stuff, which is open up and be vulnerable and talk about it.
Yeah, you know, I mean, to that point though, something you said there didn't work. It did work, and that was the hard part about it was I had no self-worth my entire life, probably up until recently, and I still grapple with it at times, but I thought that being this, all I saw was the validation that I received in my life always came from sports. Mm-hmm. And the higher I climbed, the more validation I got. So I naturally just thought I got to keep climbing higher. Because if you want to feel like you're good enough, then you have to go to the highest level. And what did that take? Well, to become an NFL athlete, I had to be this giant behemoth of a human being. So I created that. And I had to become, bigger, stronger, faster. But my entire worth was built around physicality. And so the reality is I guess if I had self-love, would I be even the size that I am today? Probably not. But I built my whole identity around this physical being. Mm-hmm. And then, I also wanted to come across in a way that was accepted by the majority of people. So I would only partake in activities and only dress a certain way and only style my hair a certain way that I thought would be, that would cause the least amount of additional attention that would be placed upon me. So I had a high and tight haircut, buzzed head all through college. I had a good head of hair. I have a good head of hair.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't style my hair, because I'd have one guy be like, "Oh, your hair, that looks stupid." All right. And I'd chop off the hair or whatever. And so I thought, okay, I'm a big burly football player, has a buzz cut. But then as of recently, I realized, when I got to this point, came off the show, and I'm like, man, I feel like everyone hates me, but I don't even like myself.
Right.
I created this image, and no one likes the person that I created. So how about I create now the person I actually want to be? Because I really have nothing to lose. I'm already kicked down in the corner. So how about I build myself back up? But this time I build myself up authentically. Mm-hmm. And that's why people are seeing now. I have earrings. I dress differently. I style my hair differently. I'm dancing. I'm open about mental health. I'm doing so many radical changes because this is the real version of me, the creative version of me that I suppressed. Which is cool. It's coming out.
Does it feel great?
It feels great, but it comes with a lot of change.
Yeah. Do you get backlash from it?
I've just lost a lot of my inner circle support group. All my friends that I built, they all became friends with a version of me that wasn't real.
Yeah.
Or just wasn't authentic. And so now I'm creating a new friend group, but I feel like I've never experienced death, really. A lot of my grandparents died when I was younger. I have one last living grandparent, but I've never had a major death in a family. But this sometimes feels like what I would imagine death would feel like, where I just lost a lot of people at once. They don't, it's not like they cut me out. It's more so I realize I am no longer anything like what you all are. I think differently. We don't have the same interest. Nothing we talk about it will entice the other person. So it feels like for what it's worth, it's a relationship that's no longer.
Yeah, you're growing and they're going in a different direction, and that's painful.
Yeah, because it's a lot at once.
It is.
When you make these drastic changes in your life, they come with all of this newness. Mm-hmm. And I've been navigating through, internally navigating this battlefield that's my brain, becoming more emotionally aware, and then externally I'm watching what's happening when I'm shifting gears and becoming something different. It's just bringing a different audience my way.
We'll get back to the podcast in just a moment. This episode is sponsored by AN Skin, your answer for all things skincare and beauty. Our medical-grade products, made in the USA, use high-quality ingredients and are clinically proven to give you clear, healthy, youthful skin. Everything is cruelty-free. Visit anskinbeauty.com to shop now and regain your confidence. Now, back to the episode.
So what would you say to someone if they're feeling the same way right now? Where they are finally becoming themselves, but they're losing all of the people that were part of their old life?
I think I would say just understand that it's going to be temporary. Mm-hmm. Know that you will make it through the other side. There'll be some hard days where you'll feel alone as you try to find your new support system, but just know that there are people out there and you attract them by just being that version of you. And if you have social media, putting that out there, putting out those messages. And you'll ostracize yourself, and some people will say, you know, oh, like, why are you posting this stuff? It's weird, and blah, blah, blah. You're embarrassing yourself. I'm getting secondhand embarrassment. I heard all these things. But eventually, the right people that actually do love that kind of energy will start to come out the woodworks. I love that you're doing this. I've been trying to learn that dance too, or whatever it is. You have to put that energy out, though, in order for people to know that it exists. And then you naturally attract it. So I would just say, understand that it's temporary, that pain that you experience with change. All pain is temporary, right? I mean, eventually we acquire a skill set to make it not painful, to make it more comfortable. Any type of discomfort is just, you know, the beginning stages of growth. I'd also say, though, the second that you find that support, latch onto it and let them know, like, hey, I'm going through this, you know, big change in my life, and I'm glad that we've become friends, but just so you know, like, I'm going to need to lean on you right now, because I don't want you to be the only person. I don't want to burden you with all of that, but, like, I don't have anybody else. So just having those conversations up front is really important as well, so those individuals know, like, hey, I need to be here for this person, you know, because they're going to need it, because they're going through a lot and they can't do it themselves.
That's huge too, because I feel like it's so hard for people to ask for the things they need.
Yeah, especially men.
Especially men. Like, you saying that, I'm like, that's really powerful, because a lot of men would never do that, or would just be too afraid to.
Yeah, I mean, I was, because you know, I grew up in an environment, a conservative area of the country, where men were portrayed, even still in pop culture, they're portrayed as athletes or firefighters or, you know, soldiers, and they do these really miraculous, you know, feats. And you know, if they cry, I mean, they cry because maybe they shed a quick tear, but they're not whimpering. They're just, I remember these movies where, like, they just have a stone cold face and they have a tear come down their eye.
Yeah.
And it's like, because they just lost 10 of their guys in war. And it's like, okay, well, you can cry whenever it's that intense. But I feel like it basically hardwired my brain where I couldn't cry for anything less. If it's not death, if you're not bleeding out, then you can't cry. And so I would, you know, suppress that, and when I did cry, I was called a pussy. That was a big one. You know, I was called words like gay, called a faggot. That was a big thing, being called fag. Growing up, this is what kids spoke.
How old were you?
12, 13 years old, and, like, kids, quit being a fag, quit being gay and crying, man. Like, you're being a pussy. Like, these are the things that were said. And you would get ostracized by your friend group, by these kids, because it was this toxic masculine environment that is what a 12 and 13-year-old go through when they start getting hormones and they start to, you know, want to date girls all of a sudden, and it's all about who can be the biggest and baddest,
right,
you know, guy on the block. And so I remember I cried one day because I'll never forget, this girl that I liked had a rock fall on her foot at a party, and it, like, split her foot open, and she had to go to the ER, and I started crying because I was empathizing. I started crying for her, and I never heard the end of it. I was made fun of, bullied for a solid year afterwards. I remember when Clayton cried whenever that rock fell on Caroline's foot. What a pussy. And I just was like, never again. I'm never crying ever again. And I remember that was, like, one of the last points that I ever cried in front of people up until like the show. I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. I don't want to be seen as weak, because that's what it was. Tear comes out of your eye, you're weak. How are you going to ever be able to, like, you can't date this girl. Like, I'm the real man. You're the one that cries. Like, she doesn't want you. And I think women also at that stage of your life, they're not looking for a guy that's going to financially pay the bills. There are no bills to pay at that age.
Yeah.
They're looking for the jock, the guy that's popular, because that matters. Status matters back then. So they're looking for an athlete or a guy that's really good at something and is just confident. And that's really about it. You don't have to worry about the guy, you know, coming home and putting food on the table. That's your parents are doing that. So that's the measurement that you have to live up to at that age. And I just realized, I'm like, I can't be this emotional mess. I got to be a real man. And real men don't cry. I had that saying said 1,000,000 times to me. So just suppressed it.
It's interesting because I feel like we have so much in common, even though you're a man and I'm not. I was bullied so bad growing up. And looking back, I think it was because I was just being myself, but I was different. You know, I wasn't like the typical girl. And that veered me off my path for so long because I felt like me wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
And so I changed who I was. Mm-hmm. And I ended up in an even unhappier place because I wasn't being genuine to myself. And so it's funny now that like I'm in my 30s and I'm my happiest, best self, and I'm getting back to that person that I was before I dealt with all that hate. And now I just have thicker skin. And when people tell me, you know, that I'm not good enough or make fun of me for who I am, I stand proud because I know who I am inside. But back then, that like 15, 12, whatever year old girl, like I wasn't strong enough and I just cared way too much about what everybody thought about me.
Do you think if you could go back in time and push a button and not have experienced that, all that ridicule and bullying, would you press the button?
No.
Yeah, why?
I wouldn't press that button because I still talk about all the bullying that I went through to this day because that's how much it impacted who I am. And like people from my hometown that still hear me talk about it probably literally roll their eyes. They're like, why is this girl so caught up in something from literally 20 years ago? Mm. But it's because it traumatized me. I mean, it quite literally like ruined my confidence. And it was like one of the hardest things I've ever gone through. But this is what I always tell people when I go through hard things. I'm like, it's because that's the only way you're going to learn the lesson. You know, and when if it's not hard and you don't have that impact like that, like it doesn't affect you in the same way. And so like when hard things happen or I go through like tough experiences in life, like I don't let it get me down because I know on the other side of that is going to be like something so much greater.
Yeah.
And it just took me a really long time, literally like 10 years probably at least, to finally get back to like who I am. Mm-hmm. But I can confidently say like being where I am right now, I'm the happiest version of me, and I wouldn't be that way if I hadn't gone through all the years of trying to be somebody I wasn't just to please other people, to realize in the end, like it's not about what they think about me, it's what I think about me.
Yeah. I asked that question because I also agree, like I wouldn't go back and change anything because it gave me empathy. Mm-hmm. And that's the single biggest thing, that had I not went through that experience, I would have never have known what it felt like to feel so, you know, low in the eyes of others. Mm-hmm. And the reality is that I don't interact with people that treat human beings like the way I was treated. And I think a lot of that was just immaturity, so I don't blame a lot of those kids growing up. But I now know that like that was burned, that cortisol response, being so stressed out, and I'll never forget. I'm like, I don't want anyone to ever feel a fraction of what I felt. But I think it allows me to also, as I ever get into situations and I find myself, if I do hurt somebody, I'm ultra empathetic towards trying to let them know that I'm so sorry, you know, and I might sometimes overdo it with the apologies, but I'm so afraid of hurting someone to, you know, the smallest degree of something that I felt, because
you know that pain. You lived it. Mm-hmm. I feel the same way. And I feel like your pain really can lead you to your purpose. And so for me, like when I completely agree. I feel like it's made me so much more empathetic, and I don't have any time for bullying. Yeah. I don't make any space in my life for that. I don't have friends like that because I know how much it impacts people, and I have like such a soft spot for people who've gone through it, because it just like hurts me to know what that, because I know what that's like. I know what that felt like. Yeah,
and it's just something that you'll never forget. And as I've been subjected to it at different stages in my life, I think it's just the most important thing, though, is that we have these conversations. It does give you a purpose. I feel most purposeful whenever I'm talking about mental health and when I'm sharing my experiences, because I get a lot of people that message me, say, thank you so much for speaking up about this, because I've never been able to put the words to it because I'm so fearful of judgment. Mm-hmm. But with you saying it, I'm able to see the reaction that you're getting. There is support out there. And so now I feel more open, safe with being able to have this conversation, because I didn't think there was anybody that I could open up to. I didn't think these conversations were being had. That is one thing that's beautiful about social media, is that now people are seeing that these conversations do actually occur, because it didn't appear that way growing up.
Not at all. You didn't hear about this.
Any of these people, like I expect men, again, having conversations, men between men, I was like, that doesn't exist.
Right.
And so one good thing about social media is now it does. It's like you can see it. Mm-hmm. It's happening.
That's a great point.
I love that, like Travis and Jason Kelce, the brothers, they get very emotional on their podcast. Mm-hmm. And I love it because it rattles so many immature men's brains when they see two NFL superstars.
Giant dudes.
Giant guys that they are the epitome of, for emotionally unintelligent men, they're like, that's the most manliest man of all. The NFL superstar, former, future Hall of Famer athlete.
Yeah.
And when they see them crying, it's just rocking their mental state, because they can't. I mean, I love it. I love it because I know it's for the betterment.
Absolutely.
But like, they're seeing these grown men that they're like, oh, they're NFL athletes. These are real men, and they're crying, and they're telling each other how much they love each other, and they're talking about their struggles. That's what we need more of, and that's why I love when I see athletes speaking up, because I'm like, you're going to be the ones that are going to get through to these men that are hardwired with toxic masculinity, because they just can't make it compute. They can't call you soft. They can't call you a pussy. They can't, because you're a warrior. Like, your job is to hit people.
Yeah.
Like, you're a beast of a human being. And so I love it when they speak up, those guys. I try to, and I played high level ball at Mizzou, and then I had a cup of coffee with the Seahawks. So I wasn't there for long, but that is something where I go speak, and I know that my size does have value, because when I go speak to high schoolers, these kids can't call me out for it.
Right.
It messes with, you can see it. They can't compute. I'll get kids laughing at first. I can see it when I first start talking about having, depression, anxiety, and I'll see them.
They laugh while you're talking?
Some of them do.
Really?
Yeah, they emotionally,
it makes them so uncomfortable.
Yeah. So they laugh about it, but then you can see it. You can see it start to turn.
Yeah.
When you start to go deeper with it, and you can see the gears shifting. But it's like, these kids need radical change to be presented. They need something radical in front of them, and that's where I'm like, I need to use what I have. If I was 5'8", it just is what it is. There's some kids that won't take a 5'8" male seriously, and it's sad, but these kids are immature. You have to understand, their brains aren't fully developed.
Exactly.
A 5'8" man will walk in, and they'll just laugh it off. And they won't say it, but they'll be like, listen, that guy, he's soft. They need a 6'5", 260-pound guy to walk in. It doesn't mean anything to me. It doesn't make me any more of a man. I know this. It's just size. But to those kids, it does matter. Status matters. I walk in and I'm a former bachelor, and they go crazy, ballistic. You have a check mark on Instagram. Doesn't mean anything. I'm not a better man for it.
Right.
But those kids think it's everything. You're famous. Oh my gosh, you're so cool. Who's all these celebrities you've met? You're a celebrity. And they listen. They're sponges, because that's what they need. They need to, their brain needs something to just shake it up and be like, you need to listen to this.
Thank you so much for listening. Be sure to tune in to my next episode with Clayton. Visit us at anskinbeauty.com to shop all of our medical grade skincare.